Hey everyone, it's Brad and Josh here, and we welcome you to We'll Bring the Popcorn, the ultimate film and TV podcast.
So now I want to take us into our TV review of the week. We have Marvel Zombies, the new miniseries on Disney Plus. This stems from a very famous What If episode where they talk about what if your favorite heroes were zombie characters, and this is kind of the kickoff point for that, where you have the zombie apocalypse, and that's where this is set. Now, some of your favorite Marvel heroes at this point have become victims to the zombie apocalypse and are zombies, but you have, kicking off this first episode, is your heroes in this case are the Young Avengers. So you get Kate Bishop, you get Kamala Khan, you get Riri Williams, and they're kind of this trio who's working to kind of survive in the zombie apocalypse, but it really kicks off starting with those three. And I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the other sidekick, Friday, who happens to be in a Tony Stark suit with a teddy bear head, which is kind of some fun.
I had to laugh at that as soon as I saw Iron Man
so funny.
Flying through the air with a stuffed teddy bear head on
It's
him.
a very ridiculous visual, but it's so fun. What I think they do a really good job of in this show is you can tell where they found their footing a little bit in the animation style of What If. I know we had talked a little bit about, you go back in our archives and check out what we thought about What If, but you could tell for a little bit they were kind of struggling to find their footing in animation style. It is so smooth in this show, in this miniseries. The animation is stunning in this, and you can really tell that they found their stride, and it really gets to show off in this. But you get those three characters who, are kind of your kickoff point for this miniseries. Is they find this little tiny transmitter device, and they're on their way to find somewhere to get the message out that can help save the planet. And that's kind of the impetus here. And you get a very quick introduction in episode 1 to a character that you and I both have been clamoring for, and I think most of Marvel fans at this point have been clamoring for. We get an appearance of Blade, but it's not the Blade that we're used to. We get basically Blade Knight, which is Blade as the Moon Knight character. You have Khonshu, who is, Pickett, his chosen Blade as his new avatar now. So you get Blade Knight, and Blade Knight was awesome in this series. I love him so much.
I have to say that Blade Knight stole this series for me. Like, he was so fantastic. His action sequences were great. And we're going to get into some spoilery stuff with this. There's one sequence where he's fighting a zombie ghost, and it was just so fantastic to see the movement action. This also angered me because it's like, Marvel, you see how fun and great doing Blade can be in the MCU. Get that movie done. Get us live action Blade. Get Blade in more things, because Blade Knight was really fantastic. He stole the show.
Well, they even modeled him after Mahershala Ali. Like, he's literally the animated.
Even though it wasn't voiced by him.
It wasn't. But to their credit, I love that they've gotten so many of the voice actors of the actors who play them in the show. So you get Iman Vellani as Miss Marvel. You get Elizabeth Olsen as Wanda Maximoff in this, who everybody's talked about, is she ever coming back as, the Scarlet Witch, but she actually does this. You get Simu Liu as Shang-Chi. You get so many of these. There's a personal favorite of mine, Florence Pugh as Yelena in this as well. Like, there's so many of the main actors who lend their voices to this that there's only a couple that aren't. And you can very clearly tell when it's not them that is, but man, it was so cool to get. I love when they can get these guys to come back and do it, because it makes it feel so much more connected, even though it's this over-the-top absurd zombie story where, it is not afraid to go very dark, very violent. It is a very heavy TVMA for the brutality in this. And it's some of the things you can get away with in doing an animated series like this, but I love that they weren't afraid to go there.
Yeah, they killed characters off fast and quickly, even ones that were not already zombies. We start with, because this is 5 years after that What If episode that we're kicking off, so we've got like Hawkeye and a few others that have already been turned, and Captain America, which that was just a wild sequence of Red Guardian and Captain America going against each other, because zombie Captain America is only the top half. Yeah. But you get a wild sequence of him rolling around on Red Guardian's shield and everything there, and that battle and fight was just ridiculous. Like, David Harbour is so good as Red Guardian, just allowing him to cheese it up and ham it up. Even in animation form, you're allowing him to cheese up and ham it up, but you also get some more touching moments in this because you deal with a lot of, he and Yelena, the widows, and all of that have taken over a SHIELD base in Ohio, and that's kind of where our main cast is heading to. But as you mentioned, we also have another kind of a side cast with Shang-Chi, and we end up getting like Spider-Man and Paul Rudd as a floating head Doctor Strange Ant-Man type of mashup in there. It's interesting to note that this became a miniseries because they wanted to use Spider-Man in it. They didn't have the rights. Of course, that's all still tied up with Sony and everything. They didn't have the rights to do film because that would count against what they have for Tom Holland and using him in the live action and stuff. But because they just did Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, they had the rights to do Spider-Man. So you also get the voice actor for Spider-Man in that series come back, but playing it very differently from that series. But it became a miniseries because of that, which made it really interesting. It does feel like a movie that's broken up into 4 episodes. And we now know why that, was because that's how they got around some of the stipulations of these contracts of, all right, we want to use Spider-Man. Well, we can't make it a movie. Let's make it a miniseries. And I still think it works as a miniseries, but it would have been really interesting to see how this would be mashed up as a single long film. But I think they did a solid job with it overall. Like, I liked and I disliked how they handled Shang-Chi in a way, because it's kind of a sore point because we got the first Shang-Chi movie. Really love Simu Liu in that. And as the character, we know he's coming back as Doomsday, but we haven't had much of anything, nothing at all since then. And so the way they bring Shang-Chi into this is before he's still Sean. He's not Shang-Chi. He's still working as the valet with Katie and everything. And so we kind of start off a little, so you're going to take Shang-Chi all the way back to the beginning, and we haven't had something in so many years. But I did think it was really neat how they handled stuff with that because, again, spoilers, we get a sequence where they're, it's the beginning of the zombie apocalypse here, and you've got Pym Labs blowing up, so you've got skyscraper zombies, and you have them all around there, and Shang-Chi gets bitten. But we actually get his dad showing up to help. You think it's a military, but it's his dad and, the group showing up, and his dad still has the 10 rings. His dad ends up giving up the 10 rings to Shang-Chi to save him. And so there's always one ring that he's got a zombie arm, and that ring, it's immortality powers and everything with it is keeping that from taking over the rest of his body. And I thought that was a really smart way of mixing in lore of different things, especially lore with the 10 rings, with the zombie apocalypse there. So even though I was a little irked that we jumped all the way back with Shang-Chi after not seeing him so long, I thought that was a really smart way to incorporate the 10 rings with the zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, it was definitely, it felt like a jump back to take 2 steps forward kind of thing with that. And I cannot wait to see him back on the screen again and see how they use him, because he does definitely feel like an underserved character based on how they hyped having him in the MCU when, Shang-Chi originally launched. And I think that is probably the best case of the worst world timing for a character you could have had, because he did come out, unfortunately, like the movie came out in the middle of COVID, in the middle of everything that kind of could have kept that from being a bigger deal than it probably would have been under normal circumstances. But I think he may just be a character of just some terrible timing, and then also in a weird time for, Marvel as a studio, where they were going through a definite creative lull that some people may feel that they haven't worked their way out of back again yet. And then that's another argument for another time. But I love to see him. Another character that I love to see was Randall Park as Jimmy Woo.
I love that
Jimmy
they included
Woo
him.
Was so good in this show, and I was absolutely spoiled. It's not that spoiled. He dies eventually, but because so few characters actually make it out of this, that just his death was brutal in just the worst of ways too. But he was so fun for the time we got to have him in. But you see them going on this journey where it takes, Kamala Khan does a lot of the heavy lifting, and she's kind of like the central focus character in this show. And she's so good. Like, I've enjoyed her as Miss Marvel. She was the highlight of the Marvels for me, honestly. And you see her as a character really shine here, that you kind of hope that they have somewhat cool plans for her going forward with like Young Avengers and her being a central focus point for that too. But she was really the central character here, and you go along this journey here with them, and you find out who is behind the, who's controlling the zombies and who's, on their own mission here. And it's Wanda Maximoff. It's the Scarlet Witch, who's like the evil dead queen, who is not only a zombie herself, but she's trying to obtain the power to reform the world. And she's, on this mission, and she's doing whatever she can to stop. And they play such good foils for each other in this series that takes them along this 4-episode run, where that last episode, man, it really hit hard and hit heavy, because you get this absolutely insane fight between the major zombie horde and the characters that are remaining. And it was just such an incredible battle that just, it ends in some of the most brutal way you can think of a series to end. But I'll save it for when we get to the end for the last 5 minutes, because there's some interesting things that could potentially be coming out of it if they wanted to go that route. But because it kind of leaves on a little bit of a cliffhanger here. But man, it was a really fun journey that they take you on for these 4 episodes. Like, I was going in expecting it to be just kind of but I actually really enjoyed it. I love the story that they told. And it's a very easy watch, because you can watch it in 2 hours. Like, you can go and watch it fairly quickly, almost like the length of a movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always say Marvel kind of missed an opportunity to have John Krasinski voice Jimmy Woo in here and switch it, have him looking like Randall Park, but because that joke is never going to get old. Like, it's just a fantastic joke and stuff. But yeah, it was a really fun series overall. Like, the main heart of the story that we haven't fully touched on is that we do get a zombie Thanos who ends up collecting all of the Infinity Stones and stuff, but we also get, and it's a great touch, because I really want to mention about this. It's a great touch by Zeb Wells, the creator and showrunner of this, is that they have Black Panther in it. It's T'Challa, but he doesn't speak, and they said that was out of respect of Chadwick. Like, they didn't want to recast and have another voice, and he plays an important role in it because he's squaring off with Spider-Man and all that, with Thanos, of trying to stop this zombie Thanos from getting everything. And he's very crucial to the story because he sacrifices himself to, push zombie Thanos down into the heart and the core of Wakanda to stop it. And that kind of sets off this explosion of just cosmic energy that we have another character, and I don't fully want to spoil what that character was. We go another character that kind of steps in and becomes the crux of this film afterwards. Amazing. And visually it was incredible to see, and I want to see that in live action almost. Like, that would be incredible to see in live action. But that was just a moment that I really loved, that we got T'Challa, we got Black Panther, we got Chadwick in there without having to speak, and have him in there that you could feel that was a tribute and an honor to Chadwick in there. And that's just bravo to them for deciding to do it that way, because it could have easily done another Black Panther or recast and had a different voice, because there are several people who are not voiced by their original actors and stuff in there. But I love that respect to have T'Challa in there and have him play a pretty crucial part, but keep him silent, so it's a tribute to Chadwick.
It was a great touch, and you get to the end where you get to this last episode, and you see that Wanda's mission is to collect these Infinity Stones to give her the power to reshape the world as, she wants it. And she's trying so heavily to recruit Kamala as like her
manipulate
right hand.
her.
Very, very manipulative, yes. And that plays a heavy hand, especially going into the end here, where you get to the point where, she achieves her objectives, and you have to, we can't not spoil it here, right? So you get to where she gets the power, and then she's basically gives her an ultimatum, like, hey, if you want to make it through, you got to join me, you got to help, like, we could save everyone if you work with me. And you just have this really powerful sequence. But yeah, man, the ending, I don't know if you want to go into it now, or if there's anything else you want to touch on first, or...
I think we can jump on it. We're trying to talk about most of it. It's only, it's 2 hours, 4 30-minute episodes, so it's hard to not just talk about
plot,
absolutely every plot, because we want, if you're really interested, to be able to go check it out and not have every single thing spoiled. Like, it's a really hard balance. When we're reviewing this stuff, a lot of times after it's come out, quite a bit after it's come out. This is just a few days after it's come out, but we want to make sure people have plenty of time and have some secrets and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I think we can go ahead and kind of talk about the ending. So we will be giving some heavy spoilers here about the ending because I'm a little mixed on how they ended it,
Sure,
and I'm curious to see what you thought about that ending. Sure.
So you get to the end here, you get Wanda achieving her goals, and she gives this ultimatum to, Kamala that, like, hey, if you join me, surrender yourself to me, we can save everyone. We can save your friends. We can fix the world. We can reset everything. And just in her her last desperate hour of, like, she makes a very powerful statement like, this can't all have been for nothing. And she's basically the last one standing. It's like her against everyone else here. And she just kind of succumbs and takes her hand. And then you just get this weird bright flash where she's back home in New Jersey. You have her mom yelling upstairs in a very typical Miss Marvel fashion. Like, hey, you got friends at the door. You walk in and you open up and you see Riri and Kate, or at least you think it's Riri and Kate. And you have them just going on a fun little day in New Jersey where, they go and, like, according to them, nothing's really happened. Like, everything's normal. Life's normal and nothing. You didn't just go through the zombie apocalypse, but you get in very typical dark cliffhanger fashion. You see these little shimmers of these people you're looking at may not necessarily be what you're looking at. And you can kind of tell that's Wanda playing with the reality stone and kind of warping Kamala's reality here to show that she thinks her friends are alive, and then you get these little shimmers where she can see that there's these people walking are actually zombies, or are they zombies? And you get what's kind of a little bit of a cliffhanger with Riri, who you thought may have succumbed in the fight to the zombies, as, like, trying to get through to Kamala, like, hey, what you're seeing is not real. Like, we can still do this. Like, let's go. And you leave this very grim, like, Kamala trying to stay in the reality that her friends are alive, while also seeing that maybe the friend that she thought was alive is still actually alive, and there's still hope. And what does that leave for a potential second season? And that seems to be where we kind of leave off here, is the potential second season of Marvel Zombies. Is it going to be a full story arc where they get to save the day? I don't know. Like, we don't know what's happening here, but I can see where a lot of people have a very, very mixed bag on this based on how it ends, because it feels a little absurd at the end, but it also kind of makes sense given how they've presented Wanda as a character here, who's been more than willing to create this alternate reality to kind of help keep people in check while she's dealing with certain things, because we saw it in WandaVision, right? So it's kind of
we got WandaVisioned again,
right? Yeah, it feels like we got that as the ending here, and it's definitely a polarizing thing for people who have already seen it and are already starting to commentate on it.
Yeah, that's the thing I was a little mixed on, because, like, I know this exists outside because it's an alternate reality where, everybody is being turned into zombie, the world's in chaos and stuff is an alternate thing. But it was the same as, like, Shang-Chi, that we went back to his beginning and kind of started over to give kind of a new direction for him going forward in this verse. But we did kind of go back to kind of WandaVision, that she is basically anybody who has survived that's in her bubble is seeing like the world is fine, but that's not exactly how it is. So it did feel a little like, all right, we're kind of retreading on WandaVision a little bit there. And it's like, I get it, and it's all right, but it's also because this was always kind of put out there that this is a one-off, that this is something that they're doing once and that's it. But it definitely sounds and looks like, I mean, that ending set up for us to do a season 2, but it was never really to the audience, to us, set up that we would have more than one season of this. Like, this was really pitched and told to everyone, like, this is just one and we're done. But that ending definitely wasn't a one and a done ending.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of speaks to, and I know we really didn't get to cover any news this week, but there's some other rumblings coming out of Marvel that a lot of their animated shows aren't just going to be like a one-season type deal, because there's talks of, obviously we know there's multiple seasons of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, there's going to be multiple seasons of X-Men 97, And that kind of leaves the door open for this to be kind of a continuation too. But where do they go from there? Is it like a whole redemption arc where you're doing a zombie series, but it winds up with the world being fine? Like, is obviously not completely canon, as you have like so many of these characters who, either haven't existed in Marvel yet or they have no other use for in any type of property. Because if you go back to episode 1, there's a really cool fight between two very, very OP, high powered, and I don't want to spoil who they are just for people that want to watch it. Two very high OP characters, one of which we know Marvel has no plans of ever using again, and one that they very clearly probably will for other things. Like they're going to be appearing in other Marvel properties. So it's just this weird balance that they strike here, but. Is this something like what's the point of a season 2 if they're going to do it? Because it does leave it ambiguous on a cliffhanger. Like you could go to a potential second season, but what was the point if you're going back to revisit it? And I hate that they leave it ambiguous only because you don't know if they're confirmed to go back to it or not. Because like you said, this has always been pitched as a one-off. We don't know. But then you get the whole cop-out that I don't like, where it's just like, oh, if it performs well, we'll definitely go back and do it again. And I don't like that. I don't like leaving something ambiguous if you don't have plans to go back and do it again. Or if it's contingent on being successful. And that's where I think that's a whole other topic that we can go into for so many other... It's not just this instance. There's so many cases of TV shows leaving on a cliffhanger that never gets resolved, or leaving at a stopping point where it's not satisfactory because you think they're going back to season 2 and it gets canceled or goes to another season or what have you. Like there's a whole list and a whole episode we could do on just that subject alone. But I don't know. I'm not a fan of leaving it ambiguous if you don't have plans to go back and revisit it, because it just feels incomplete.
Yeah, because you don't know, like you said, where do we go from here? We know it's going to be something about Kamala trying to break out and we see who's left, but we lost just about everybody that we could think of that we had in this and stuff. So you're going to have to introduce some new. So like, depending on how long it's like this took 4 or 5 years, it takes a long time to do some animation stuff, because they said they included Blade in this because it was when Marshala was announced that he was going to be Blade. So like, all right, we expect the Blade film's going to be out by the time this comes out. So we have a nice tie into the Blade universe and stuff. Of course, that never happened. We have Doomsday. We have Secret Wars coming up. We could potentially, if we get a second season, and more than likely is going to be well after Doomsday. So do we get Doctor Doom? Do we get any of the X-Men? Do we get any of that kind of mashing Fantastic up into Four, this world? I would love to see Ghost Rider show up in the zombie apocalypse.
Perfect character for that.
Like, where was he? Like, come on. That's a character that's perfect for a zombie apocalypse to, go on just an absolute rampage and stuff with it. But yeah, it was... I wasn't expecting it to be open-ended, so that left me okay, you're setting up to something, but it was, at least to us, was never planned to be multi-season. And yeah, you give the lines like, well, if enough people watch it, we can do more. And I get maybe Marvel's being a little more hesitant on stuff and they're not greenlighting everything. But if you put something out that it's said to the team that you're doing a one-off, end it like a one-off a little bit more solidly so that you can, if you decide to go do a second one, you can still find something to pick up from. Yeah. But if you don't, then it ended well. This one did leave me in the WandaVision like, hey, this isn't resolved. This isn't kind of finalized. We still have some problems and some issues and some things that have to be worked out. And yeah, it was one of those that was just like, it wasn't bad, but it was also, when I go in thinking that this is a limited time event, that you're going to get the full conclusion of the story that they're trying to tell. And clearly there's at least one more season worth of story to be able to tell with this, which I'm not mad about potentially having more of this, but it's more of that everyone went in thinking that this is it.
Yeah, it's all about subverting expectations at that point, because like you said, I'm not anti a second season of this. I'd love to see the story continue, but when you have that expectation going in that it's going to be a one-off, and we understand not everybody going into this is going to have that knowledge necessarily, but it does skew our opinion on it, because we do know, because we, nerd out about these things like we do. Like, we know going in that it was supposed to be a one-off, and it's left as doesn't feel like a very buttoned up kind of thing. I almost think, and I hate to I hate to kind of like fantasy book this or what have you, but like if you could have wrapped it up where it's just the end and she wins and it's just kind of a dark note and she just reforms the world in her image and it's just a zombie world at that point and she's got everything she needs and it's buttoned up nicely, wham bam, thank you ma'am, done. It doesn't have to have a happy ending. It doesn't.
Yeah.
Like, and you could just been, all right, cool, we're done, wham bam, we're done. It was a fun story, but like they gave it a valiant effort and you just feel heartbroken for everybody that didn't make it. Boom, done. Like you can leave it on that and I would have been perfectly fine with
now
it.
Now you left us with hope that there's more to it.
Right. And I get it. You play with that hero trope a little bit, but like still it's just like you could have left it and it would have been fine. But that's not to say I'm not excited for what they could potentially do if they do a season 2, but at the end of the day, we don't know, and that's the maddening part about it. Like we don't know if we're going to get the follow-up on this. And if this is all they're giving us, it has to, in the moment, skew how I would score it. You know what I'm saying? Like if we give it a rating and I'm just like, it's going to have to knock off a little bit for me for an overall rating just because we don't know. Now, the fun part would be if they do go do a season 2, do we re-rank season 1 knowing that there's going to be a season 2 now?
Yeah.
And could it maybe bump up the score for what we gave it here? And I'd like to maybe keep track of that if we could, if they go back and revisit this to see, does it change our opinion now on season 1, knowing that, okay, we got a season 2 and we got this definitive conclusion to this story. Does it affect how we feel about it now? Then when it happens potentially versus how we feel about it now. You know,
yeah, it'd be fun if we do get a season 2 to go back and like binge it all at one time and see how it fits together. Because the other thing is that you hope that if they do a season 2, that it's not going to be something that's completely out of left field and it changes everything and it doesn't kind of, as you said, it feels like a movie. That was split up because they needed to do so to get access to a character. Like I was just expecting a definitive kind of ending. Like I was expecting, okay, so Scarlet Witch wins and that's it. Like there's no hope. This is a dark story. You don't need the heroes to win.
Yeah.
You can allow, and then you've got Scarlet Witch can be good and bad, and which is also a great dynamic with stuff.
Absolutely.
And Elizabeth Olsen, no matter how she plays in animation live action, she's just amazing as Scarlet Witch. But you could have left it with her turning the entire world into zombies and just having rule of the undead and stuff, and that would have been a solid fitting ending because this is a dark story. We don't need that happy ending.
Right. And you just don't know how it's gonna play out, and that's kind of where I landed with this as far as like wanting to grade it, because I got enjoyment out of it, but not knowing whether they're going to follow up on it, it's going to have an impact, unfortunately, for sure.
Yeah, I had a fun time with this. We're being very nitpicky about some of the story stuff, but when you're going into something to have a fulfilling story with it being a mini series, as it's pegged to be as a mini series, it's also giving me flashbacks of Shogun that was touted as a miniseries. We absolutely loved and adored that show, one of the best shows I've ever watched. And then it ends, and we got 2 to 3 more seasons. It's like, if something's popular or going good, but if you have a certain story and you're telling what's supposed to be a singular story and ending it there, and then you're either leaving it open or going ahead and running with more, it's just like, it just leaves that kind of like, wait, what? Type of feeling to it. Like, we hope Shogun season 2 and 3 are fantastic. We hope we get a second season of Marvel Zombies, and it maybe concludes it there, but it just kind of left with a weird feeling at the end when it left it so kind of ambiguous because you thought this was it.
Right. I agree. But in the end, Marvel Zombies, the new animated miniseries from Disney Plus, is kind of a mixed bag with the ending, given we don't know. It's ambiguous if there's going to be a season 2 or not. It was originally presented as a 1-season miniseries, kind of end all be all, finish it up. But the animation style, gorgeous. It's very well done. The storyline is a lot of fun. The ending is kind of a mixed bag that leaves us wanting a little bit more when we were hoping for a more definitive conclusion. Now it's up in the air if we don't know if we're getting a second season or not. So based on the fact that we don't know where we're going from here, if we're going anywhere at all, it's going to unfortunately knock down the rating for me just a little bit. I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. I really like the story a lot, but it loses some of its luster when you present it as a one mini-series season, and now it leaves leaves it ambiguous, like, okay, we could go back to it if we wanted to. I don't like when series do that. I know it's not completely up to the people in charge of making the show itself, but to give them a little bit of that wiggle room feels like a little bit of a cop-out to me, just based on the fact that it felt like it was only going to be a one season thing. I'm going to knock it a little bit as well for kind of backstepping a little bit for some of these characters that we're used to of seeing, like Shang-Chi, who felt like we went back all the way to the beginning in a way that kind of worked, but I still wanted to see a little bit more from him. And then obviously the ending with the WandaVision-esque Scarlet Witch stuff that we got at the very end just kind of left me feeling a little bit miffed. But overall, I really enjoyed the story they told. There were some really cool moments here featuring some characters that we know we're not going to see again, but also one that got a really cool story in that 4th episode, especially, that I'm excited to see if they do follow up on it. It's going to be fun, but in the end, I got to give it a 7.5. I really wanted a little bit more from this, and I really wanted it buttoned up nicely, but unfortunately, we just didn't get it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I was between a 7.5 and 8, but you hit all the points that I also felt about. I did feel a little like about how they went backwards with Shang-Chi when we got to see him finally again, and we got Simu voicing him again. But I did like the little touch that they did with the rings with that, so I was all right with it after the fact. But when it first started, and same thing with the ending, feeling like it's another little bit of a retread, but we didn't really get an ending, thinking that this is a limited run miniseries, like this is it. And if that is it, it left it a little too open-ended at the end. So I think 7.5 is fair for this because of the few issues it does have, and with that ending just leaving you like, I thought this was it, but it's not. But it could be, because they have no idea if they're going to get to do any more.
Yeah, I still want to go back and watch, like kind of get a little bit of more of enjoyment watching it again. I want to go back and revisit it because there's some really fun stuff. Like I said, I loved Blade Knight in this. It was so much fun. Blade Knight was an amazing character. Got a really cool story in this. Just phenomenal. I love that they still modeled the character after Mahershala Ali. Hopefully, we'll say it till the end of time until they make the movie. Get Blade done. Stop screwing around. Like, get it done. We need Blade in the MCU. It's such a cool character. There's so many cool characters that I want to see them explore a little bit and finally reintroduce into the MCU. I'm really hoping they follow up with Blade and get that movie done. But yeah, I mean, it just, I get so stuck on that. Don't present it as a limited miniseries if you have plans to follow up, or if you're writing it. And I do want to give, like I said, you can't completely blame the people that make the show for leaving it a little open and ambiguous if you do it. But if you know going in you're only doing a one series, maybe they know something we don't. Which
could have also been something maybe they want to do more, and they're trying to force Marvel's hand,
and it could be
to do more.
And it could be, and I hope they do at this point. Now that we've gotten what we've gotten, go back and revisit it and finish the story the way they want to. But if they don't, it just feels like such a missed opportunity to just really button it up really nicely. And I get it. It's a fine line you got to walk. They made a choice. This is what we're given. But, man, what could have been if they just button it up? I might have even bumped it up to an 8.5 had they had that definitive ending. So I think it really affected my grade in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, but all 4 episodes of Marvel Zombies is out on Disney Plus now. Go check it out. Let us know what you thought of it. Like, we are being a little critical, but we really enjoy from the comic run and also the What If episode of what they've done with this zombie world. You got a lot of violence and action and decent story points that they're going through here. Just felt like it just got started, and we have no idea if we're getting any more. It's like, it just left us feeling weird afterwards. That's the best way I can say it. It's just kind of felt like it's done and it's over with, but it doesn't feel like it's done and over with, but we have no idea if it's continuing.
Right, and that's unfortunate because it's a really well done story. It's very brutal in a lot of cases. Like, it's very violent and in good ways, and you get to see some fun interactions with characters that you just don't get to see in regular movies, and that's part of the fantastical part of doing a zombies series like this. But it's a lot of fun, and like I said, I love that they get so many of the MCU actors to come back and do the voices for the animation. I'm a big fan of that anyway, and just the fact that they continued it with this, hats off to them. I hope they follow up. I really do, because I want to see them now that they've done it. It's left me wanting more, which, if that was your mission, success. Convince your bosses to give you another season. Hopefully people check it out and it does well and we get a follow-up on it. So hopefully it'll change our overall thinking of this story if we get to go back and revisit it. To find all of the episodes of We'll Bring the Popcorn, go to our YouTube page, hit the like and subscription button so you're getting our episodes when they drop each and every Monday. If you're listening to us in the audio room on any of the podcasting platforms that we're on, please don't forget to give us a 5-star review. It really helps elevate the profile of the show. And don't forget to go to willbringthepopcorn.com, where it has all of our archive videos, all of our social media information, as well as our merch store, so you continue to support the show in that way. We cannot thank you enough for your continued support.